coffee break, so that's just to give you a bit of courage. Let me start with a question. Who in this room was trained as a pilot, an air traffic controller, a firefighter, or some other operational job, and is now doing something else? Raise your hands, please. Good. I'm not alone. Now, this is quite normal. It would be surprising for our grandparents to hear a statement like that, but today it's the normal thing. You are trained for something, and then you move on in your career. And that is not a problem. It doesn't have to be a problem, provided that, as we heard from the previous speakers, you get the right education, the right training, the right development, the right coaching. Now, is this the case in aviation? Let us have a look at an area that I know best, air traffic management, or better, air traffic management in Europe. We've had geese this morning, so I thought dogs would be appropriate for the afternoon. Air traffic management, the dogs of aviation. I'll try and explain the picture. Air traffic management is air traffic services, the controllers, that's the customer-faced part of the job, and that's the little job, the little dog, the one with the present. And then you have all the other people. You have airspace managers, you have air traffic flow and capacity managers, you have communication, navigation, surveillance engineers, you have data processing people, and you have a lot of administration behind that. So let us have a closer look at what that means in Europe. In monetary terms, the first group, the air traffic controllers, cost 133 euros per flight hour to an airline. The others, a bigger group, cost 310 euros per flight hour to an airline. Let's move on. 17,000 controllers are working in Europe. 41,000 others, operational, technical, administrative staff. Now, about the controllers, we know that they are well trained, well regulated, they have licenses, there is oversight, they are retrained, they get all sorts of training, and that's a good thing. What about the others? On the other side, we know that engineers generally, they get a good professional or academic education, they have a wider view of their area of expertise, and they know more than they have to know when they join aviation. The same is true for a lot of administrative staff, the accountants, the HR managers, they're well trained. But what about the operational staff that is not an air traffic controller anymore, but that has moved on to something else? Do we know such people? Can somebody give me an example of an operational staff that is not doing air traffic control in ATM? Nobody? There must be somebody, yes. Go ahead, the lady. Training manager, yes, that's a good example. The same for you, also a training manager. Anybody else doing something else than training management? Unlikely in this room, of course. But there are other jobs. And this is the result of a conversation I had with two colleagues in the corridor just before making this presentation. So you can see there's a lot of jobs out there that require operational experience, but that are not air traffic control in the strict sense. Now, if you look at these jobs, you will probably understand that some of these jobs are very important for the efficiency, for the performance of your air traffic management system. And their importance is increasing as the system becomes more complex. And the air traffic controller, the pure air traffic controller, the guy with the microphone, the radar, or the view of the airport, is getting a smaller part, is becoming a smaller part of the job. So their importance is increasing. How do we select them? How do we train them? Well, let me give you one recipe. You take one controller, you wait until he's hit by a bus, and then if you're sure that he's not going to be controlling anymore, you select him to become the air traffic control system designer of your outfit. Show of hands, who has done that before? No, I was only joking. The fact that you laugh proves for me that you recognize the situation. Now, there are other recipes. You could also take the least popular guy in the team and make him the system designer, or the one that doesn't get on with the supervisor, or the one that is getting a bit old, who's not quite sharp enough as a controller anymore. Let's move him into airspace management, and then be surprised that the airspace is not managed well. I'll give you some examples, some positive examples of how it could be done. Oversimplified careers, but you will recognize one or two elements that are important. The first one is a career that starts off the screen with air traffic controllers training. Then the man or the lady is moving on, becomes an air traffic controller for a while, and his boss identifies him or her as somebody with more potential, with a wider view on things, so they send him to a route network design course. He's then taking up that function, and later on he's sent off to training again, this time about airspace regulation, and he ends up as the head of airspace policy. This is a typical career for an operational person that wants to move out of his strict ATC job today. So you see two instances of training, of course oversimplified. In reality there will be many more. Another example. This person starts out as a graduate, is recruited as a graduate, is then goes through his air traffic control training, becomes an air traffic controller, is then sent to a data processing course, and then moves on to become finally the head of system requirements. Now, in some nations, they recruit only graduates as controllers, others recruit some graduates, others let a graduate program run in parallel with the controller training, others select some people later on in their career, but in today's world it is important that you have operational people with a wider background than just air traffic control. So what is my message? My message to you is that the operational people that are not controlling are becoming a more and more important job. And if we want the small dog of the picture, if we want him to function well and to function in ideal conditions, we have to train the big dog. So remember that. Train the big dog.